Hello, Cheapario here from the nation's capital of Washington, D.C., with a special kind of quick perspective on The Last of Us on HBO Max. So, The Last of Us just premiered this past Sunday. We're going to have a new episode this coming Sunday. And I just want to provide some initial thoughts. With Sicario, most likely we'll do an after show at this point going forward. But unfortunately, Cheapario was doing some business in D.C., and it's going to take a little while, but next Sunday, it's game on. We're going to be doing an after show. Some perspective on The Last of Us on HBO Max. Coming from somebody that's never played the video games, because Cheapario plays cheap games, and Last of Us sometimes a little expensive for Cheapario to play. But anyway, so Last of Us premiered on HBO Max this past Sunday, and it is a really good premiere and a really good interpretation thus far of, from what I understand, is the video game. Now, never having played the video game, I've played survival horror like Resident Evil. I've played Silent Hill. I've played zombie apocalypse games. So when Last of Us came out, even though I'm a fan of Naughty Dog, that is the development company that made this game, I was kind of zombie apocalypse out. I didn't really feel like playing this game, even though it was a very serious narrative. But from what I can tell, the show not only realistically, as best as possible, interprets the video game, it also expands in that material and something that provides more drama, more fleshed out characters, even more so than what you experience in the video game. So in terms of comparison from what we've seen recently with the Netflix Resident Evil series, or even the movie Resident Evil series, this material is more serious in terms of the video game itself, but with the show, it's taken that material and really enhanced it even further with further character breakdowns, further character interactions that you may have not seen within the video game, because the video game was more involving the gameplay. So, or kind of more the intense nature of just being able to walk in those environments and kind of go around the infected that are in this post-apocalyptic world. So Last of Us seems like a very great show from the start of it. That first 30 minutes that takes place 20 years ago in the early 2000s, really impactful. Really hits all the marks. Even on its own merits, it's better than much of what you see with video game adaptations. It seems like HBO Max has treated this with sincerity, and in comparison to what we've seen with Resident Evil, there are good and bad things and things that wouldn't have applied to Resident Evil. So with Resident Evil, even though more recently you've seen the characters with more of a narrative, more of a full three-dimensional character, for the most part, up until the recent Resident Evil 7 and the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes that you saw on more recent consoles, they're very two-dimensional characters, very B-movie, silly storylines, even though it had built this canon over the course of whatever may have you, 25 plus years. So with Last of Us, the game itself is more serious. There's more drama in those characters, more drama in that storyline than what you may have with the Netflix Resident Evil series. With the, should I say, the Resident Evil game canon universe. So with any type of adaptation of Resident Evil, there's going to be some type of B-movie type of approach to it. There's always going to be some type of, I wouldn't say necessarily campy, but it's not going to be the same tone that you have with The Last of Us. The problem with Resident Evil, in terms of the movies and more specifically the Netflix series, if we're going to compare the Netflix series to Last of Us in terms of success and failure, is that Last of Us added a lot to the show that only amplifies the really intense nature of where the characters are living in, the really intense environment in a serious way. And the characters are fully fleshed out, that they are really realistic in terms of the decisions they make. Nothing is going through slow-mo. The character interactions make sense given of the situation that they're in. And there isn't any period of time in that show where we're kind of wasting time, where we're kind of just dealing with filler, where we're kind of adding stuff to the narrative that really doesn't make sense as to what the character choices would be. And truth be told, that is the problem that we had with the Netflix series. Everything that had been added to the game universe really was not something that was value added, that was a benefit. All seemed to be negatives that you're trying to slap on there. The series had issues with respect to tone. It had issues with respect to filler. Even though the Netflix series had a run of maybe 7 to 8 episodes, there were episodes within that series that didn't aid anything in the narrative. Whereas The Last of Us has more of a specific narrative structure that engages the viewers as you go along. So this is just a first of many, but for everything that The Last of Us is, the Netflix Resident Evil series wasn't. And as a big fan of Resident Evil, it's sad that Capcom didn't have those same behind-the-scenes productions that gave the same level of seriousness and sincerity. Even though I liked Lance Reddick, who's the actor that was the main star of the Netflix series as Wesker, he was a big proponent also as to why I watched it. But that Resident Evil didn't get the same loving treatment that Last of Us did. So just a quick look. Again, I'll be doing some more after shows with my buddy Cheapario, my brother over there. So hopefully guys tune in and watch those after shows with more perspective. And that does it for this first video. Again, this is Cheapario from the nation's capital. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time. Bye.